The story begins with a brief panoramic shot of New York City's skyscrapers and the chaos that reigns in the city. Manhattan and its famous Central Park is framed. A young girl rides on a bicycle, with her pet in the basket. This animal is Max, a small white dog who lives in New York with his owner Katie. Their meeting took place many years ago when Max was a puppy abandoned on the street. Katie took him home, and Max has since become the happiest dog in the world. Although Max teases very often, the girl loves him just the same, and she even lets him sleep in her bed. Every morning she goes to work, and Max is very sad about it, so he stays at the door all day waiting for her to arrive. Many other animals also live in the condominium, who unlike Max have a lot of fun when they are alone at home without owners. Some of these animals are Max's close friends, such as Norman, the hamster that crawls through air ducts, and Chloe, a fat cat, very lazy, apathetic and indifferent. There is also Gidget, a white dog, fanatic of Spanish soap operas, and she is secretly in love with Max. Gidget lives in the building opposite Max's apartment, and while he doesn't take his eyes off the door waiting for the mistress to arrive, she stares at him the entire time. Later, Max's other friends arrive, and they spend time together chatting about their masters and playing ball. Evening arrives, and Max is unable to contain his happiness as he hears the mistress's footsteps approaching the door. However, his mood changes drastically when Katie opens the door and shows him a surprise. She has found a stray dog named Duke who needs a home, so now he will be living with them. Duke immediately proves to be affectionate and willing to cohabit, but Max doesn't like it and tries to convince Katie to get rid of him. Duke, having discovered this, changes his attitude and proves himself hostile towards Max, stealing his cradle, the blanket, and finally even his bowl of food. When the next day they are left alone in the house, Norman, Max's friend guinea pig, arrives at his apartment, and Duke tries to grab him, but he accidentally breaks the jar. Max initially worries a lot, but soon after realizes that he can use what has happened to his advantage to provoke Katie's anger, so he begins to blackmail Duke by breaking objects and forcing him to follow his orders. From that moment on, Max has shown himself to be authoritarian and rude towards Duke. A little later the two are taken to the park by dog sitter, and Max continues to mistreat Duke, giving him stupid orders and humiliating him in front of the other animals. The dog sitter gets distracted with a friend of his, forgetting to remove the leash from Max. As soon as the human doesn't look, Duke, fed up with Max's behavior towards him, tricked Max out of the park by pulling him by the collar and throws him into a garbage can. Before Duke can escape, the two are surrounded by a group of stray cats, led by a cat named Ozone, who manage to tear off their collars and are about to attack them, when they are joined by two dog catchers. The strays flee, but Max and Duke are caught. Max is furious with his new roommate over this whole situation, but Duke is panicked as well. He can't go back to the kennel. He has been there for a long time and was only saved thanks to Katie, so he would be asleep forever. Meanwhile, dog sitter returns with the dogs, not realizing that two are missing. The first to notice Max's disappearance is obviously Gidget, who immediately realizes that the two are definitely in trouble and will be lost in a huge city. Driven by love for Max, she decides to go in search of her. On the way to the kennel, the dog catcher vehicle is stormed by a group of animals led by Snowball, a hysterical and bossy white bunny who hates humans. Pretending to be a helpless little animal, he uses the distraction to allow his group to take over the van. The driver tries to escape the attacks, but is chased out of the vehicle, and the animals start driving. Of course, the ride doesn't last long and the van ends up crashing into a wall, tipping over and catching fire in the process. The strays free their friend locked in the cage, which is why they organize this attack, but leave Max and Duke to death thinking they are pets, a breed they despise. The two obviously don't want to die, so they use cunning to convince the rabbit that they are strays themselves, and besides that they are also very dangerous as they have killed their masters. The bunny is fascinated by the bravery of the two, so he frees them and takes them with the group to the sewers, where his secret base is. Gilded is looking for Max on the roofs of the skyscrapers, but comes across a rather creepy cage. From inside the cage you can hear the voice of a hawk, who lives here chained and blindfolded. He uses cunning to ask Gilded to free him in exchange for a hand to find Max, although his intent is to eat her. The naive dog removes the blindfold, but soon regrets his actions when the hawk leaps to eat it. Luckily she is saved from the chain, and reproaches Tiberius, the hawk, for deceiving her. Tiberius apologizes for his actions, and says he won't do it again. Gilded gives him another chance and this time the two become friends and set off in search of Max. Meanwhile in the sewers, Max and Duke discover that Snowball is the leader of a secret band of stray animals of different species that hate humans because they have been abandoned by them. They are very well received as they have had the courage to kill their masters, but have trouble telling lies when the bunny asks them for the details of the story. Meanwhile, Tiberius manages to find Ozone, the leader of the stray cats who attack Duke and Max. Using force, Gidget discovers that the two have headed into the sewers. Snowball also wants Max and Duke to join his gang and subjects them to an initiation rite. The two will have to be marked by the bite of a viper. As Max is about to be branded, the strays who had removed the collars from the two dogs reveal to Snowball that the two are mere pets, and the rabbit orders his companions to eliminate them for lying. Duke stands in defense of Max, and in the fight the viper ends up crushed by a pile of bricks, dying. Max and Duke, forced to flee, reach the sewer system and, following the conduits, manage to reach the outlet into the sea, saving themselves by boarding a boat bound for Brooklyn. Stray animals want to avenge the viper's death. Gidget returns to her apartment to organize a rescue group with the help of Max's and Tiberia's friends. The group heads to a party, held in the apartment of Pop's owner, an old dog with paralyzed hind legs who knows the whole city well. He initially refuses to help, but impressed by Chloe's beauty, he dedicates to come forward. Max and Duke are very hungry, but they can't find food even by exploiting the ability of tenderness. Fortunately, a few moments later their nose perceives the smell of something good and succulent, and they head in that direction. Pops leads friends around town to the sewers, where they discover that the stray animals are hatching a plan to get their revenge on Max and Duke. The latter two, on the other hand, have found a dog's paradise, a sausage factory, where they manage to sneak in and eat their fill. Here they finally make up and become friends. After eating, Duke reveals to Max that he had had another owner in the past and that he ended up at the kennel because he had turned away from the owner by mistake. Moved and struck by Duke's affection for his old master, Max decides to accompany his friend to him. The dog catchers find them, but the two still manage to escape. Once they go to the house where Duke was staying, they discover that the old master is dead, and now there is a new family and a new pet. Disappointed and saddened by it, Duke gets mad at Max, accusing him of taking him there just to get rid of him, and then he barks at the owners, who frighteningly call the dog catchers. Max, offended by his words, walks away, but is captured. Duke saves his friend, but is locked up in his place. Max immediately sets off in pursuit of the van to save Duke, but is intercepted by Snowball, who and his companions want to kill him to avenge the viper. The dog catchers notice them and take them all, except Max and Snowball, who, despite everything, are forced to team up to save their friends. Max and Snowball steal a bus and manage to reach the dog catcher truck, which, rammed by the two, ends up off the road and crashes off the Brooklyn Bridge. Snowball's friends manage to escape, but Duke is trapped in the truck. Max wants to save him, but is surrounded by Snowball's friends, who believe him responsible for the death of their leader, who in the crash of the two vehicles has lost consciousness and appears dead. For Max it seems the end, but just then Gidget and the others arrive, who manage to knock out Snowball's friends. Max throws himself into the truck to save Duke, but loses the key to the cage, and with it the hope of saving his friend. The two look at each other accepting the cruel fate, but Snowball dives into the water and retrieves the key, freeing Duke. Upon reaching the surface, the animals steal a taxi, with which they return to the building where Max and the others live. Before returning home, Max and Gidget confess their feelings, becoming a couple. The animals return to their respective apartments, while Snowball and his henchmen leave to return to the sewers. Before retiring, the animals are joined by a little girl who, fascinated by Snowball, decides to take him with her. The rabbit, despite her initial distrust, agrees and, happy, goes away with the new mistress. Max and Duke return to their apartment just moments before Katie gets home. Katie is surprised by the mess in her apartment, but happy that the two get along, she doesn't mind. In the finale, all three take to the stairs to look at the skies of New York and Max, now fond of Duke, welcomes him to the family. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like, comment and subscribe.